The groundwater management districts were created in the 1970s when it was known that in areas of groundwater use that there were depletion problems and they needed local voices. There was a real push for local input on how to manage a challenging water resource, whether it was depleting quickly or slowly because they behaved differently. But there were 5 areas that were created, 5 different groundwater management districts, so that local input could inform and advise and support managing and extending the life of those aquifers.
My name is Katie Durham. I'm the district manager at Western Kansas Groundwater Management District Number 1 in Scott City, Kansas. I handle a lot of the day-to-day work, any of producer issues that come through the door. We help with water right assistance, any sort of applications for change of place of use or correspondent, and then general policy work on the local level. We work with our locally enhanced management areas and our water conservation areas as well, and just really try to provide services to any producer that comes through our door.
The whole function of the Groundwater Management District is to assess and evaluate the groundwater resources that are available within its boundaries, and then come up with management plans for its producers to sustainably utilize that resource.
You have huge swaths of the state that are completely dependent on groundwater, and then only a couple hundred miles away you have an abundance of surface water in certain areas. And I think that that creates a dynamic where individualized solutions are going to work best when it comes to policy implementation. And so that's why we really try to focus on the local control aspect, because what is going to work for GMD 1 it's not going to necessarily work for GMD 2 or GMD 5 or any of the others, because we're just so different in so many respects. Prior to the ability for the locally enhanced management areas to be implemented, the groundwater management districts did not have a whole lot of tools necessarily when it came to policy that restricted water use on a temporary basis. But that law change in 2012 really changed the game when it came to how groundwater districts function, because it gave them the ability to develop local policies that then become legally binding once approved by the chief engineer. Everyone recognized that we needed to do something to address the decline in the aquifer, but they really just wanted to make sure that it was fair and it was economically viable, and that everyone was a part of the process in putting those plans together. Therefore, the creation of the WCAs and the LEMAs, which really have a grassroots focus to them.
Our system of laws for water is a first in time, first in right. It's called prior appropriation. It assumes there will be shortages, because what the rule says is, in times of shortage, who gets to use the water over who else. The older your water right, the more protected you are, and the newer people have to give way. So that's kind of the background to all this. The state has come up with some mechanisms to encourage people to use less and provide flexibility. So what a water conservation area, a WCA, is purely voluntary. Anyone with a water right or any group of water right owners can get together and say, I'm going to cut back my use in exchange for flexibility. If you enter a WCA, you get a 5-year agreement with the state, and they'll take your annual authorized quantity times 5, and you can use it over 5 years. So you can save it in 1 year, and if you need more the next year, you have it sort of in the bank. So that flexibility is something that producers really need and can really help. Some years there's a lot of rain, some years are really bad drought. The outcome, however, the end net use is going to be less. You have to agree that the whole total is going to be less. A LEMA, a local enhanced management area, is another state level tool. That's where a local group of users in a groundwater management district can come together and say, we know we need to cut back and we don't want the state telling us how to do it. So here's our plan for what we're going to do. This is how much less we're going to use. These are going to be the enforcement mechanisms, and they ask the state to approve it. And if the state approves it, then it's temporary, 5 years, but it applies to everybody in The LEMA. A LEMA will be a geographic area.
To develop a LEMA, the Board of Directors will work with staff and with the Kansas Water Office, the Division of Water Resources, and the Kansas Geological Survey to identify areas of concern, possible action plans or LEMA work that would pertain specifically to those areas. And then they'll structure that for a certain period of time. So producers are given a 5-year quantity of water that cannot be exceeded. And then that plan, it's a physical plan that gets written and adopted by the Board of Directors and then sent off to the Chief Engineer for approval. It goes through a series of public hearing processes, plenty of time for public comment, and at the end of the day it has to be legal and it has to save water. And once and if approved by the Chief Engineer, then it becomes binding and is implemented at the district level. We have 2 different LEMAs. We have the Wichita County LEMA and then the 4-county LEMA. The 4-county LEMA took historical data of real usage from 2011 through 2020 and distributed that against authorized acres and then came up with a sliding scale for the percentage of reduction. So if they were using less than 3 inches on that authorized acres per year as an average, then they received a 0% reduction. If they used over 12 inches per acre over that period historically, then it became a 25% reduction. The Wichita County LEMA is a little bit different as it is by point of diversion, and so it was a 25% reduction. So it's just a different way of looking at them, and again, that just really has a lot to say about, these LEMAs have to be locally developed, and that's kind of what makes them so unique.
I personally am excited about the LEMAs because of a couple of things. We're finding that it's being locally driven. It forces people to work together to say, look, this is something we all need to do. We want to do it together. We want to do this with our own control, and also looking at how government is supporting that local act. And they're making informed decisions, not emotional decisions. They're keeping local control out here, so it's producers and communities making decisions for themselves. And you're finding state government supporting their people in a model that is very healthy.
Everybody recognizes the need for the conservation out here. We've got a really good manager at the GMD. She's really spearheading, getting a lot of those agencies to work together. Everybody wants to be helpful, and everybody's got a program that they could do. It's just trying to get everybody to figure out and head in the same direction. That's a lot of it's been like herding cats, and we've got a great cat herder.
When it comes to total water savings within the plans, we've really started to see some positive data. We have been able to see that they are currently exceeding their savings goals. The Wichita County LEMA had a savings goal of about 25% reductions per point of diversion, and we're seeing that they've really exceeded that to the point where the Wichita County as a whole has reduced pumping by about 39%. So that's just a really remarkable number and shows that these programs are working, they are effective.
Those in the LEMA have used even less than their targets, and they have been more profitable because they've had to employ more intentional management. And it turns out that you can use a lot less water and still be profitable in ways that people never thought were possible ahead of time. That is very promising because we don't have another voluntary alternative to that that's as impactful. And there is a mechanism through the state where the state can come and declare what's called an intensive groundwater use control area, an IGUCA, and impose restrictions for 5 years at a time. Nobody at a local level wants that to happen. So there's a lot of incentive to do this to avoid the state coming in and doing it. But the folks that have been in a LEMA that have seen what it does, seen what it can do, they're very proud of it, and as often happens, they're invited to speak and present at many different meetings to say, this works for me, this is my operation, these are the outcomes I've seen, and that's really very helpful in spreading the word. But that's the kind of thing that we need to have happen.
There's so many different ways for producers to get involved, not only with the Groundwater Management District, but all the other agencies that kind of encompass this area, both federally and on the state side. All of our board meetings are open to the public. We have a newsletter that goes out electronically. We have annual meetings. And then recently the board actually adopted a new management program. And that management program is kind of the who, what, when, where, why of our district. We have a municipal outreach program, a stockwater outreach program, and then county-wide outreach meetings that take place in early March of every year. Our website is gmd1.org, and there's a lot of information there for people to reference, both in water declines and water usage, water quality and quantity, and just don't be afraid to ask questions. These resources are just imperative to the success of our future communities, and we want to make all of these resources amply available.